Internet, welcome to the 187th episode of the Comic Watchers Show. I'm Matt, he's Chad, and with us this week is the one and only Matt Kint. Matt, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I got to tell you, the interview tonight was like, let's talk about Flux House. Let's talk about mind management, hairball, Spy Superb, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you just came in before we started live and were like, let's talk about anything. And so I'm like, oh, it's on. So, but how are you, man? Everything good in your corner of the world?
Yeah, I'm doing super good. I literally spent all day today just prepping for my first big convention of the year.
Oh,
Heroes in Charlotte, and I'm doing a bunch of really crazy stuff, so it took all day to, and I'm not even close to being done yet, but
now is that Heroes?
Yeah, Heroes in Charlotte.
Heroes, okay.
Yeah. But I'm doing something different this year. They were real generous and gave me like a booth space, like a big end cap area.
Oh, wow.
And then I warned them ahead of time. I was like, hey, it's gonna be a little weird and different, doing some something interesting. but that interesting thing is taking so long to put together. It'll be worth it, I hope.
Does it fall? Oh, go ahead.
It's Chad. A booth of hairballs, right?
You're 50% correct. Yeah, I'm gonna say you're 50% right. There's definitely there is some hair in the booth.
That's awesome, dude. So about roughly a year ago, Flux House was announced over at Dark Horse, and since then you've been incredibly productive with your time and with your books that have been coming out. And I get the feeling that, especially because you have such a long-standing and positive relationship with Dark Horse, that they're kind of just saying, dude, just go do you. How is it? How is that for you? How to have that sort of liberty, and does that level of liberty kind of come with its own unintended consequences?
Yeah. I spent really my whole career trying to get to this point, right? Where it's like, I have a home where I can do whatever I want. I can write any story I want, publish it however I want, make it look like whatever I want it to look like, to set my own schedule. So that's like the dream, that I've been working towards. And now that I have it, I'm like, it's like, oh, okay. Well, there's always like an edge, like when you're always trying to working really hard to get a pitch put together and selling the book, try to get something published and that kind of thing. And then that stress and that motivation is gone now. And so I've been trying to figure out how do I still want that. I want that stress. I want that pressure to make a thing, or the pressure to is this going to work, or is everything going to fall apart and fail? So I've been trying to figure out how to get that and keep the spark alive, and I did. I think what I've just ended up doing is trying to think outside the box and be more creative with not just the storytelling and how I draw or whatever it is, but just the presentation. So the just the paper and the covers and the design and what can we do that hasn't been done? Why haven't we done it that way? Oh, it's because it's so expensive. I was like, okay, well, how do we do that where we don't I don't lose Dark Horse a bunch of money, but we still make it something interesting. And so it's just juggling, literally, some of the business part of it I've been juggling just to make sure that I can do something totally and crazy, but it doesn't we're just not dumping money down a hole. But I do find I've carried that over to my approach with going to conventions. I'm going to a bunch of shows this year, which I haven't been in a while, and I'm kind of burned out on those, and I've sat next to people at conventions where you can tell they don't want to be there, and they're just kind of grumpy, and they're going through the motions, and they're kind of rude to people that come up and everything. And I was like, I never want to be that, I don't want to if I feel like that, I shouldn't be at it. Don't go to the show if you feel like that. You shouldn't go, And so in a way I'm trying to ward that off. I was like, I want to prepare a show where I'm excited to go there because I don't know exactly what's going to happen, how people are going to react to a thing, or I have like little activities set up for people and just different things, more interactive sort of things to do that will keep me interested. I think that's just an extension of what these books are, which is just trying to keep myself interested, trying to do comics that I would be excited about, if I hadn't done them, and be like, oh, what's this about, why is it like this? And so that's, yeah.
Well,
So what kind of got you excited about comic books in the first place? I guess what I'm saying is, what's your origin story with, as a reader before you, said this is something I want to do?
Yeah, I think like I started out, it was the 80s, like mid 80s. So it was like G.I. Joe #1 came out, and along with those toys, and I was a kid. And then Frank Miller's Daredevil hit me right after that. I was reading that stuff. That was my first introduction to comics. So I think like that Frank Miller and G.I. Joe is in my DNA to this day. Like, and I look back on G.I. Joe, I was like, I don't really see it. Like, I'm not big on like war comics or this or that. But then look through those old comics, they have like the back pages have like little cards with like info about the different characters, and then there's a cutaway view of the headquarters and like all the vehicles and the gadgets and stuff. There's like diagrams of those, and I love that stuff, and that's that was there from the beginning. But yeah, so and then you get older, and then I'm constantly trying. I've been lucky enough to grow with comics, so like when Watchmen was coming out, I remember sitting in high school algebra class reading the issue where Dr. Manhattan's on Mars. I was reading it while we were supposed to be studying or something in algebra class, and just wondering, I was like, what's going on in this comic? Well, this is so weird. Like I hadn't read it's not the first issue. It was like an issue in the middle, whatever issue that was where he went to Mars. And then, so it didn't make sense out of context either. I have no idea what I'm reading, but like it was sparking something in me, and then, by the time I get to college, Dan Clowes is doing 8-Ball, and I was like, oh, this is the stuff I can see.
Yeah. This
comics.
Is an option.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay, because I felt like I was starting to grow out of comics again. And then when I discovered Dan Clowes and Chris Ware and those guys, I was like, oh, there's still a place to do like smart, weird comics, that aren't just superheroes, but still have genre and everything and the stuff I do love. And I just was able to somehow carve a place into it.
Well, I have to say your narrative approaches are always very unique. I tend to, I don't want to say pigeonhole, but I tend to think of you and Jeff Lemire in a similar sense, in that you're both writer artists and you both tend to write like somebody that is an artist, right? So in other words, your comics have a very, very strong visual component that moves the narrative along, rather than being as reliant on exposition or narration, et cetera, et cetera. Is that a style that you kind of just happened upon? Was it a lot of trial and error on your side?
Yeah, no, I think you can tell when a writer is also an artist, and what I mean, even if they're not drawing it, I think you can tell. And I think that does change the way you write, because you're visualizing it as if you were drawing it, And then as I get older and I work with other collaborators, I start to visualize how they're going to be drawing it, and especially if you've worked with somebody before. Like there's a few people I've worked with before, like David Rubin and Tyler Jenkins and Wilfredo Torres, like those guys. Like I can picture it now. I can write picturing how they're going to draw it, and it sort of helps me too. But yeah, I think a long time ago I taught a college like comic book creation class, and I remember the first day, a bunch of kids had signed up, and I was like, well, raise your hand if you want to be a writer or an artist, and I was like, who wants to be an artist? And like one hand goes up, and then who wants to be a writer? I was like 20 hands go up. I was like, well, this is a writing and drawing class. So I'm just warning you up front that you're going to be drawing it. Even if you're not an artist, you're going to be drawing it. And I think that was like the best way to teach writing, was to have the kids like write their script and then draw the thing you wrote, you know, because then you're going to see all the mistakes you made and the holes in it, and then it changes the way you write, because you're thinking less abstractly, and you're thinking more about what's actually got to happen on the page. I was reading I was rereading some Alan Moore Swamp Thing though, and I was reading those, and he was using like some sensory details like smells and tastes and things, and I was like, oh, those are like more like writer only things that you put in there, because you know what I mean, you're trying to put all that. And I was like, that's the downside of doing the art, is sometimes it can hold you back, where it's like, oh, that's hard to draw, so like I don't write things that are hard to draw normally because I'm lazy and I don't want to draw them, you know. And then I tend to forget sensory details sometimes, because it's, you think of it as a visual medium, but what comics can't do is give you smell and sound and taste and things like that. So it's good to reread good writing and then see what the holes are in your own stuff. So if you see like a big uptick in my sensory details this year or whatever, that's blame Alan Moore.
I'm sure he'd love to lecture us all about that.
Yeah. I think you can pay for it now on the masterclass.
Yes, absolutely. So you just wrapped up Spy Superb, 3 issues with your wife. How was that collaborative process?
It was good. We've collaborated before on Department H, which was like a 12 issue.
Okay, my mistake.
Studio project. Yeah, no. And but we took a break because she's not a huge fan of like the monthly deadlines. She was not used to the like those that make me feel numb now. I don't feel monthly deadline pressure anymore, because I'm just I kind of thrive off of it in a weird way. Right. And she does not. So she took a little bit of a break, and then with this one, we sort of I worked way ahead of time, so I would turn in pages for her, and she could just take her time and work on it at her pace. And so we didn't release issue 1 until she was pretty much done, you know, just because I didn't want to put her through that again, you know. Sure. And but yeah, it's fun. Like, we work great together. We've been married 26-ish years.
Congratulations.
And, and it's, you know, I mean, we have a 19-year-old daughter, so she's, you know, I mean, we've collaborated on a lot of things that are harder than comics, and we've done all right. so yeah, it's fun.
That's awesome. And Chad, take the wheel for Hairball.
Oh, yes. Well, first off, wow, I'm looking at my cat different now. So what I guess, you know, the place to start would be, well, what was, you know, the inspiration for? I mean, it seems, you know, it seems like it's a very layered story that you're building, and the cat is just a small part of it.
Yeah. No, it's like I'm trying to remember where the exact idea came from, but I do remember talking to Tyler before we started working on our next book, and he wanted to do something with a little more like family drama and maybe a kid in it or something. And I was like, and I think maybe I had an idea for like a evil in quotes cat, you know. The cat's not evil. Like, by the time you get to issue 4, you know, I don't want to hear from cat lovers that I'm disparaging cats, because I'm not. I'm a former cat.
Well, cats are evil anyway.
I love cats, and it just depends. Here's the thing. I think you bring the cats. You bring what's in you. You bring it to your cat, and then so my cats were like 50% evil, because I bring 50% evil to everything I do. But no, they anyway. So I feel like I just had a couple ideas floating around, and when Tyler gave me that prompt, I came up with this idea of sort of a cat who seems to be one thing, and then as you go along, I like the idea of this girl who has this cat that she's afraid of, who seems to be this evil cat, and then as she gets older, her idea of what this cat is and what it represents changes, you know, where she thinks, oh, maybe the cat was looking out for me, or maybe it's protecting me. And then in the story, I like the idea of the reader sort of interpreting, you know what I mean? Is she putting this on the cat, or is the cat this thing, you know? And I kind of lay it all out in the last issue 4. I guess it hasn't come out yet. Issue 3 is out. Issue 4 kind of spell it all out. But,
I think issue 2 comes out next week.
Yeah. Oh, issue 2. Okay. Yeah. I got a PDF for issue 3 to proofread it and everything. But, pretty good issue.
I'm taking a look at my coffee a little closer though after reading issue 1.
Yeah. Oh my God, I made myself sick in my stomach after I wrote that. I was like, why did I write that? I don't know.
So many of your projects, though, have like really, really unique flares to them and sensibilities. And I mean, what do you look to for inspiration?
I do. What I've started calling my Criterion Day, or I just stay home and watch Criterion movies like literally all day. So I'll be watching like let me see. There's a bunch of movies back here. My 2 watch piles right there. They're laying down right now. But that's one thing I'll do, especially if I start to feel like I'm not really feeling it, or I need to feel like more creative. I'll just watch like a bunch of like those boring movies you're supposed to watch, and then and like there's something about like it almost puts you in a meditative state, like I'm not watching them to be entertained, because some of those I don't think you watch to be entertained. You watch them to see like, art and cinema and all, and everything, which I do love. Like I'm acting like I'm not pretentious. I'm definitely pretentious, but it does put you in a meditative state. Yeah. No, here, we'll see I'll show you what's on my list. Well, these are the ones I haven't watched yet. So Kiss Me Deadly, that's like a pulpy classic. I've watched it. I've seen it before.
I think that's been written about in the back of a Brubaker comic. Yeah.
Purple Noon, which is like a French adaptation of what is it? Those books, the Talon Mr. Ripley books.
Okay.
So this is like a French version of that, which I just read those again because I'm working on like a murder mystery thing, and I wanted to read that to see, just because I was curious. I knew the story. And then what's this? Fim Vendors. This is 3.5 hours, so this is probably going to be I take the day to do that one.
Yeah.
But what did I watch this week? Sans Soleil, which is like a documentary, by the guy who did La Jetée, which is like a time travel story he told with like just still photographs and sound.
Really?
I recommend it. It was like it inspired like 12 Monkeys and something else, some other time travel thing. But anyway, those are pretty good. So I looked at that. I read a bunch of books. I read a lot of history. I just discovered that the CIA funded abstract art in the 50s, like secretly.
Somehow that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, no, it's great. But I was like, how is this not like anyway, it was crazy to me because it was during the Cold War, so they're trying to show that America's free thinking and freedom of speech and all that stuff, and so they were secretly funding this art that couldn't get the funding through museums. Anyway, fascinating. But I think most of my ideas just come from real life stuff like that.
One of your favorite projects of mine was Bang, and the way that it deconstructed like 4 different genres of action hero. Well, action in quotes to an extent. But it was certainly left the door open for a sequel, at least one. Yeah. And I assume it's in the works in some way, shape, or form. But just I was really impressed with the way that you wove the actual prose from these fictional books into the story itself. Was that something that lent itself specifically to that story? Is that something that you could transplant to another series and do it and find a different way to do it, or is that just its home?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, potentially so. I think I'm doing like a spiritual sequel to Bang called Subgenre. It hasn't been announced yet. But,
okay.
Wilfredo's doing the art again, and it's a character from Bang who gets his own story. And so there's a page at the very end of that series that's all text similar to that. with a little bit of a twist. I can't spoil it. We can't even talk about
Well,
that one
no,
yet
don't
because it
spoil
hasn't
it.
been announced.
I
But
want to read it.
but yeah, no, but Bang to me
There it
was
is.
like I think an editor asked me once. He's like, we want you to do your like your Black Hammer or something. I was like, I don't have a Black Hammer. I'm kind of burned out on like superheroes in general. And I don't mean that in like I hate superheroes. I just mean that there's so much good superhero stuff out there. I don't really want to I don't want to do another one, you know.
Sure.
But then it sparked in me. I was like, well, what would that be for me? Like, what is that like? And then pretty much Bang came out of that, where I was like, I would love to reimagine not superheroes that I grew up with, but what did I like growing up, which was like Doc Savage and Knight Rider and the A-Team and Murder She Wrote and and James Bond, of course. So I thought if I could take all of those, right, and reimagine those into like this super group, you know, that sort of teams up sometimes.
You had me at Murder She Wrote.
Yeah, Murder She Wrote.
Yeah, just
Murder She Wrote.
Read it.
Yeah,
little Agatha Christie in there. Yeah,
there's a little Agatha Christie in there. There's and then I have the follow-up book to that outlined and ready to go. It's just finding the time, you know.
Finding the time. I mean, you're not quite a one-man band, but you're close enough. I mean, you have how much of like the, for lack of a better term, administrative side of Flux House do you handle?
And if I'm drawing the book, I turn in a finished book to Dark Horse, you know, and they do like the print buying and like pre-press stuff and all that. But I basically I just send them a link to the files with the whole book, you know, put together. Other than that, I design the covers for everything, and then sometimes
you've got all the creative control, and you're not having to wear like 3-4 different hats and be, you know, Mr. Businessman, Mr. Marketing, et cetera, et cetera.
I kind of do that, but
oh really?
I direct it. You know what I mean? I have people that help me. You know, I have like David Hyde I work with. He's really great. And Daniel Shaban is my editor, and Chuck his assistant. Everybody. It's not a one-man show for sure, because like I literally can't do all of that stuff, even though I would love to do it all. But no, I work with a great team of people at Dark Horse and everything that really helped me. And like I really just try to express like what I want to do, which is like I just want to do it different than we've done before. When I launched Flux House, I sent an email out to everybody, print buyers, everybody at Dark Horse, and I was like, let's do, if you're bored doing anything that we're doing on any of these books, let me know. And if there's that's not a cat.
No, that was a very silly dog.
Yeah. But it was like if we've done it that way before, let's do it a different way. You know, if it makes us a little nervous, then let's do that one. Let's do the one that makes us a little nervous, whether it'll fail or not. You know, and just try to do something different. And to the credit, everybody sort of stepped up and help come up with new ideas and help me sort of like figure out wacky ideas and what's possible. You know, and like with mind management, we did like these poly bags with playing cards in them and.
I kind of went back in preparation for this interview and read up on some of your pressers and interviews for when Flux House was first announced. And one of the things that did definitely catch my attention was the idea that you wanted to bring a level of collectability back to comics by doing, you know, like you said, the trading cards or just something unique that we haven't seen before.
And that's the thing is like we've seen poly bags and we've seen like the you know what I mean, we've seen all that, but is there a way to do it in a different way? So there's a hole in the poly bag. So like the cover was actually the back cover and you don't get to see the front cover until you open it. And then there's a little playing card that goes with a regular deck of cards. Like it was all things that we've seen done before, but the purpose for them and the reason for them being was different, you know. It's more purposeful and more story driven by the content of the books, you know. So I'm not trying to totally reinvent the wheel, but at least repurpose dumb things into something that helps the story along. You know, I'm trying to figure out how to do pogs in a way that advance the story. You think I'm kidding?
I really don't. I really don't, Matt. That's so great.
We're gonna get there.
That's great, dude. And that said, Flux House isn't the only pool you've had your toe in. I know you've done some stuff for Bad Idea.
Yeah.
And
you just wrapped up the Boom project, right? With
Berserker. Yeah.
Berserker, yeah.
Chad. That could not spit that out. So
yeah, that was like a 3-year project that we
right.
Yeah.
But you got to work with Keanu Reeves. How cool was that?
It was pretty great. Yeah, it's life-changing for sure.
Yeah. Did you get some of his like mellow Zen energy and just harness it and keep it and maybe smoke it? I don't know.
What's funny is we have a very similar vibe or whatever when we work together. Yeah, it's it's interesting. I feel like we did mesh in a way where I was like, how do you know that will work? But somehow it worked.
That's awesome, dude. That really.
How did that creative process kind of work between the two of you?
Well, I would sit on the corner of his couch, and then we would go over an outline I wrote, and then we would brainstorm scenes, and I would type them up as we came up with them, and then I would put a bunch of stuff together. Then I would go back to my hotel, go to sleep, wake up the next day, come back in, sit in the same spot on the couch, and then we would just go over what we'd done the day before and like flesh it out, and then maybe add some dialogue, or I would add some dialogue, and then we'd go over that, and then literally we co-wrote every piece of the book.
Was it kind of a weird experience sitting in the same room as the main character who's also the IP for the book?
No, it was interesting. I would liken it to role-playing game.
Okay.
So, you know what I mean? That's what we ended up doing is like he's role-playing his characters. And he was B, of course, and then and a little bit of Diana. And then I was a little bit of Diana, and then I was what's his name? The cult guy. I can't remember his name. But Caldwell. So Caldwell was like my guy who I would, he was the cult leader, and he's like the guy trying to like get the little pieces of Berserker and collect them and try to build a big Franken Berserker. And so that was my guy I was operating. And so it was kind of fun because you're sort of like, putting the characters against each other. And it just became, we didn't plan it that way. It just kind of ended up being like that.
Did you outact him?
What's that?
Did you outact him?
No, I absolutely did not. It's so funny. It's like he would do the line readings and everything of all the dialogue too. It's so good and fun. I was like, I wish somebody besides me could have enjoyed it.
Could have witnessed this moment. That's awesome. And I'm sure you've told this story before in the time since Berserker was announced, but how did you, of all the people in comics that Mr. Reeves could have chosen to work with for this, how did your card get drawn?
Yeah, it was through Boom and the publisher. I was working with them. I think I just finished Black Badge, or I was in the middle of Black Badge, and they called and asked me if I would be interested in co-writing a thing with them, and so I was like, well, what's the idea? And then I was like, okay. And they called me out to have a meeting with them, and then we just got along. I think the meeting was just to see if we got along, and I was out there just to see. They're like, well, listen to his pitch, because the pitch that they gave me seemed like it'd been done before. It was like Eternal Warrior Lives Forever, and I was like, I don't know what there is to do there that hasn't been done. But they're like, just come out and listen to him pitch it. And so I went out there and he pitched it, and he had like a twist, whatever. The ending that you see is kind of what he pitched me, and I was like, well, that didn't go anywhere near where I thought it was going to go, or be what I thought it was going to be. And I thought that was interesting. So I guess I felt like I was going out there to see if there's something I could contribute, or if the story was going to be any good, like if we could make this good, I want to be involved. But if it's just me like ghostwriting a thing for a star, I was like, I'm not really interested in that. But we ended up hitting it off and getting along, and that's it. I don't know. I think they talked to somebody before me, but I don't know for sure. I don't want to say what I don't know.
Right.
But somehow we worked. We got along.
I can't imagine not getting along with Keanu Reeves. Like, what kind of an asshole doesn't get along with that guy? You
Yeah,
know?
well, you just answered your own question. That's who doesn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Chad?
Oh, I was just going to say one of my favorite things that you did was Crimson Flower.
Yeah.
Is will we see any more of that, or any more stories along the because that deals with Russian folklore, and I think that was an interesting concept that you kind of explored there, and the art
Yeah.
was also awesome by Matt Lesniewski.
Yeah. Matt's art is so good, and like he's ahead of his time. He had some other projects he wanted to do next, and I was like, I don't. And he doesn't really. He's one of those guys that doesn't really need a writer. Like he's a full on writer artist, and like his ideas are so crazy and out there and unique that I was like, I don't want to get in. You don't really need me. I mean, if you need me, let's do something, But also, you should have your own voice and do your thing, and carve that out, because I think people are like still discovering him, and he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be doing comics his whole life, because you can tell, like you can look at, I can see that look in the person's eye where I'm like, oh, you're doomed to do comics your whole life, just like me.
There's no shutting that gene off.
Yeah, you can recognize it in another person that has it, and I recognize it in him. And so I was like, we'll definitely do something again one day. But he had some projects he wanted to do, and wouldn't be opposed to doing another Crimson Flower. But yeah, his drawing styles, people are not. He's ahead of his time. People haven't caught up to him
It's
yet.
really like, and Chad and I interviewed Matt. I don't know how long it was, last year sometime, and I got pretty familiar with his stuff, and yeah, he's got this style of art that, like you said, it's just ahead of its time and just incredibly hard to pin down or describe or compare to anybody, which is great in and of itself. But it also, like, it disarms people at first, because we're just not programmed to accept something we're completely unfamiliar with like that.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's like he's as unique as like Robert Crumb, who's I think the closest thing I can think of to what he does, but that's a disservice to Matt's stuff, because I think his technical and his lines and like the but the distortion of the figures and the hatching and everything, like he has that in common. Well, that's as close as I can think of, but his storytelling and the stories he's telling are just completely like, in another world, just super unique. Anyway, I'm happy to know him. I'm like, I told him, I was like, look, dude, when you're like the living legend, remember that I worked with you when you were young.
Chad went to school with him, so
no, I didn't go to school with him. He lives probably about 30 minutes north of me. So
okay.
So I consider him a local creator.
Yeah.
Well, upstate New York, everything is relatively local. So
what is it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, fine. Go ahead, Chad.
I was going to say, what is it about the mystery, detective, espionage genre that kind of appeals to you? Because I mean, a lot of your work is rooted in that, and a lot of your stuff is taking what is been established and kind of turning it or reimagining it. What is it about that genre that appeals to you?
Yeah, I think there's some there's just automatically built-in drama, and then there's also, like, having grown up with superheroes, the everyday real world equivalent to superheroes is kind of a step sideways, is espionage and spies, where you have a alter ego, this other identity that you're taking on to do like a mission, so it's like you're not putting on a mask, but you're taking a different name, and maybe are changing the way you look to be this thing, to complete some mission or something for the greater good. So to me, it's like it's a back door into doing like superhero comics that I don't have to draw. They can be a little more grounded, be a little more human. They can be a little more sad if I want them to be, but also funny. Everything the superhero books can do, you can do in spies, or you can do with anything. And really, it's just like I'm just trying to find a genre of comics that is not overpopulated, and spies is one of those. As soon as there's tons and tons of spy comics, I'll probably do move on to something else.
What are some genres that you haven't played in or haven't played in very much yet that you'd like to play in some more?
I'm going to do, my editor's going to come in. I want to do a romance comic. But
that's cool.
He's told me, he's like, that's
Tom King has one going right now.
There's a way to do it. And
yeah,
I've talked to Tyler Jenkins about it too. And he pitched me this idea. I was like, yeah, we're going to get to. It's going to be weird. It's going to be weird romance. It's not going to be like, you know what I mean? It'll be more like an EC Comics romance.
That's what's up.
But yeah, so there's a way to do it where it's technically romance, but you know, but I've had fun with horror too, like Hairball that just came out. It's like I did one other horror book, Fear Case, before that.
I loved Fear Case.
And I never thought, I would never claim to like horror as a genre. Like if you look at my movie shelf, I would say I don't have any horror on there, but you know, if you count The Shining and Alien, those are horror. So I do have horror, but it's not a genre like I'm a huge like connoisseur of, you know. But I enjoy good versions of it. So it's sort of fun to try to figure out what does my version of that look like, you know. And it's I don't like being startled, which is great because you can't startle someone in comics. So it's like, good, we'll just take that off the table. There's no jump scares, you know.
Right.
And, but yeah, so it's a little bit sad, a little bit.
Now I will say, Jeremy Hahn has come pretty damn close.
Yeah.
Like that dude can write some horror.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying it can be done. But what I like about it is I know that that's probably not going to happen. You're not going to be a sound when I turn the page and then startle me. I don't like being startled.
Well, and it's hard to pull off. Oh no, the page is turned, and now with no sound, right?
Yeah. No, but I think I like the psychological horror. I think you can find that in a lot of my work, you know. Not just, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be, but I think just there's like some horrible ideas. I think I'm a huge fan of David Lynch, and I think you could put almost all of his movies into a horror genre if you wanted to.
I can see that.
Know? But it's really just the ideas that are horrible, you know. And I think having that, like Hairball, the worst part of Hairball is that coffee cup where he's drinking the whole time, and then there's a hairball at the bottom. That's terrible. It's a little gross, also horrible. And anyway,
I screamed.
Yeah. Did it jump scare you? I was
You did it! Congratulations!
I'm so sorry.
Looking back just a little bit further into your career, you were one of the architects that really helped to reimagine what the Valiant universe looked like. And I know that there's a whole new bunch of people running Valiant now. It's a totally different beast, but I mean, you and Venditti and Lemire and God, so many talented folks were over there basically just being given this whole universe to play with. Like, how cool was that?
Yeah, it was great. You know, it felt like I liken it to Marvel in the 60s, you know, where you're getting to take some old characters and make new ones and sort of revitalize this thing that a lot of people didn't know about it or care about, you know, and make people care about it, and sort of build this new, like a whole foundation for this universe, you know, and sort of update it, you know. It's like it was a once in a lifetime thing because there's not a lot of legacy characters like that exist that aren't being used and squeezed to death or you know, or that people did care about and are gone and then come back. It was really once in a lifetime thing. So it's really fun to be a part of it, and I love it. I love when people come up and I have to sign some Ninjak stuff, or they have a question about Ninjak or something, and then Divinity, which is one of my favorite things I've ever written. You know, it was one of the few new original characters for Valiant. That's one of my favorite things I've ever done. You know, so I'll always have a soft spot for it.
That's great, dude. I love, and I'm just gonna be that guy for a second, but I just love the way that your career has dipped and dived and swerved and gone to all these different companies and done all these different projects. But at the same time, like, I never feel like your voice is being subsumed by the publisher in question, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah. You could dig for them. There's a few issues at DC where I started to. I was like, you know what I mean. It was like you hit some walls there.
mm-hmm.
But even there, like it's just like tell me where the box is, and I'll play. I'll figure out a way to play just on the outside of it, you know, where it's technically in a box. Yeah, I don't know. I've been lucky enough in my career where I've been able to kind of do. By the time I got Marvel and DC work, I was already doing my own thing and happy. So I was usually invited to do that stuff. So if they're inviting me to do it, I'm assuming they're inviting me to do it how I do it. You know, they want my voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not trying to fit a mold or just fill a spot.
I've never understood the mentality that says, "Oh my God, we've got this amazing writer. Let's water them down, to make them our house style."
Yeah, and so that's the way to get in. Like if anybody who's breaking in, I was like, don't try to just break right in. Otherwise, you won't know what your voice is. You know, by the time you get that work, you want to have your voice, have it figured out. You know, so that you can be true to yourself and everything and all that stuff. But yeah, it's fun. You know, I got to write Spider-Man one time, so check that off my list.
That was a fun little mini series. I got to tell you, I had no idea what to expect. I think that might have actually been the first Matt Kindt comic I ever read.
Oh yeah,
all right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
Marco you on art. You can't go wrong with that. I just sort of got out of his way on that one.
Yeah. But yeah, what a just unique little experience. Like I picked it up and read it, and what the hell did I just read? And looked at it again. Said, I'm not sure if I've ever actually read a comic quite like this. So, of course, that was right around the time that at least as far as me and probably a bunch of other folks consider as well to be your signature work, Mind Management, was really just getting off the ground. You recently revisited that world with the 4-issue bootleg miniseries, which you did not do the art on for the first time in that series history. Like, what was it like getting back into that world?
It was it's fun, you know. I think like having written that series and as dense as it is, it sort of changed who I was. You know, it was a 3-year deal, so by the time I got to that third year, I was different. I was a different person, and I had been thinking in mind management, sort of like that thought process for so long that I don't think I've ever shaken it. So like things I did after that, they kept being like mind management ideas or things that I'm like, oh, this would be a good thing for that. You know, I couldn't turn it off. And so I took I was like, I don't want to go back to it ever, you know, at least not in a normal comic book format. So I had to try to turn those things into other things. And then when I was launching Flux House, I was like, maybe I can do mind management. People know it. It'll be a good launch book, you know. And then, but I wanted it to be different. So I wanted it to be something that felt like not fully approved by myself. You know, I was like, if I have other artists do it, then that helps me make it look different and feel different. And if every issue is different, different artists, then it's really stands apart from the other stuff I did. So I felt like there was a way to do it still as a comic book, but it's totally different. And I'm not sure what the question was there, but I did, in the meantime, I'd done there's a mind management board game, you know, which has its own kind of narrative sort of woven into the thing. And I did all the art for that. And then I did a mind management book and record, which is like a read along record that has sort of a twist to it. Like what you're reading, the audio doesn't quite match what you're reading, you know, but so it changes the way you're feeling about it, because the words on the page lie to you and the audio is truth, or the other way around. You have to sort of figure out which is which. And then so I did a couple other things like that, and mind management to me is the most elastic of my ideas, because I really want to do those stories in all kinds of formats. You know, Netflix optioned it, so we're working on like the pilot's written. We're trying to make that into like the craziest TV show you've ever seen, to sort of match the comic, you know, which is sort of pushing the idea of what comics can do. So if we do it in television, you kind of want to do the same thing as like sort of, you know, play just outside the box, you know, as far as you can go without getting in trouble. you know, and but yeah, that's one of those, I'll never not have mind management ideas.
So when you're not doing comics, and you're not watching your, Criterion movies, what do
Yeah.
you do to relax? Because I know that I've seen, I know you stream, you and Kyle Starks. It's Fortnite that you guys kind of stream and play. Is that correct?
Yeah, we stream. We've been both been gone alternating weekends, but we usually stream Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. on my YouTube channel, and we'll just play Fortnite for 2 hours, and it's just an excuse to talk. Like, we play it anyway, and then we're like, why don't we just stream it, and then people can ask us questions. But we do, and then you can just watch us get killed by kids while we talk about comics. But we're doing it. We're playing this week, but I wanted a week off from live stuff just because I needed a break. So we're just going to play for fun this Saturday. Then we'll be back on it next week.
Nice.
That's awesome, dude. I never would have thought to live stream playing Fortnite just to
that was
but I mean,
idea.
It's outside of the box. So
that's what we're doing next week.
All right.
Well,
we could do a team up. We could do a live stream team up, you know.
I hate to tell you this, but do you remember that episode of The Office where they're playing Call of Duty and everybody's ripping on Jim for being as bad as he is, and he's like standing there just walking against the wall? Yeah. That's me with any video game made after about 1998. So we're gonna have fun.
Oh, that's great. You don't have to be good to play with us. That's actually worse if you're good at it. No, we don't want that.
Oh, okay. That makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to catch up with my son on his new Nintendo Switch games.
Oh, you're done for, man. Forget it. The 6-year-old's got you, dude.
Yeah.
The 6-year-old's got you.
Yeah, just forget it.
Matt, you said that your daughter's 19. Is she your only kiddo?
Yeah, we had one. We had enough comic book career budget to have one kid, so we had one.
Okay. That's does she ever jump in and join on the live stream or anything like that?
She doesn't do that. I drew a comic book for her. She's going into art. She's in art and everything, graphic design and everything. So I drew a book for her last year that she's painting. She's doing the watercolor painting on it. But I drew it for her. And, I don't know when that's coming out. She's in her finals week this week, so I'm not putting any pressure on her to meet deadlines. I'm just, when she's done, she's done.
Do it. This is the real world.
Yeah.
No mercy.
Yeah. I don't know if comic books is the real world.
It's real-ish.
Yeah, it's close. It's real adjacent.
Yes, absolutely. So, given just sort of the flow of your career, and you were talking at the beginning about how everything that you've done to this point seems to have led you to Flux House. Like, looking back on it, I mean, you got to be pretty damn happy, right? And if not, like, what more can you do?
Yeah.
What's the future of Flux House?
Exactly.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't really look back at my career, or like I have a section on my shelf that's just all the books I've ever done. So I just put them on there, but I feel like, to me, it's just like scorched earth. It's like I do a book, and then it's burned, and then it's behind me, and I just keep going, because I have a bunch of ideas and things I want to try out and stuff I want to do. So I don't sit and look at, like, look what I've done. None of that matters. It's like, what's the new thing? Is the idea going to be, I want to beat the thing I did before, or I want to beat, I want to beat all the ideas that have ever been done. so like, that's why I'm constantly trying to do it. And then Flux House to me is like, it sprang from mind management. So to me, like, there's very little distinction between mind management as an idea and Flux House as a reality, which is just, in mind management, there were these safe houses that the agents could go to, and they were called Flux safe houses. And what it was like, it was a storefront that it's a storefront, that you see down the street from you, where it's like it's always something new, like every month or
Oh,
every
cool.
6 months it's something else, And it's like, where did that? Didn't that used to be a pizza place? Well, now it's a nail salon. Well, no, not now. It's closed down. Now
It's
it's like
like
a
the
hair
neighbor
company.
on Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, yeah. So it's one of those, the safe houses were these places that kept changing. So it was a safe place for the agents to go because nobody ever went in there. You didn't know what it was, and so it was like a safe place. So when I was naming this imprint, I was like, I don't know what. I went through so many names, and then some of the names had my name in it, and I was like, that seems egotistical and stupid, so I don't want to do that. And then, but I felt like Flux House made sense because I want to be like that storefront where I can do a weird romance comic, or I can do a horror book, or I can do a book about a cat, and the cover's covered in fur. You know what I mean? It's like, well, that's not like the last book. Yeah, it's because I don't want to do a book like I did the last book. I want to keep doing like new books and different ideas. So that's kind of like the big pretentious idea. Is just give myself freedom to do like any kind of book or any kind of project I want to do. Like it's not Flux House Books, it's Flux House. So I want to be able to set up at a convention and have like some weird things that I won't go into right now.
Have you ever considered just doing something that was straight ahead prose?
Yeah, my wife's always pushing me to do a novel because she's read some of the stuff. I have written a novel. I've written a couple things, but I don't. I just don't think. I don't know why. I think I always joke about like this. It's because there's no money in it. Like I did get a contract from a publisher to write a mind management novel, and I was like, I could just make more money doing like comic books than spending a year to write this prose novel. So that seems like such a superficial decision to make. But I also I like art. Like I'm an artist who likes to write. So I don't want to write for a whole year on a thing because then I'm just going to want to draw on it, and if I don't get to do the drawing part at some point, then I get irritable, and I get bored. So I just want to do both.
Is there one that you kind of, is it, do you enjoy both drawing and writing equally, or is there one that, or do you go from one and then you get, like you just said, you're writing, but then you want to draw it, or you're drawing it?
Yeah, I do get burned out. If I do one thing for too long, I get burned out on it. So I want to switch gears and do the other thing. I would say I could never draw the whole time because I don't want to draw someone else's ideas either. I've tried that before. I'm miserable reading someone else's thing and interpreting it, and so I don't really like doing that. So I have to do. If I'm gonna draw it, I'm writing it. But yeah, I like them both. I don't think in comics you can't really separate the two. Like they're so intertwined. And like the Twitter argument that always goes around once a year, it's like, oh, which is more important, the artist or the writer? I was like, what are you guys doing? Why are you arguing about this? I mean, it's like this. Like you can't. Like if it's done right, like there are bad comics that where the writing was clearly more important and then the art failed it, or where the art's amazing but the writing failed the art, so there are ways to fail, and the ways to fail are if one took precedence over the other and they didn't work together. So I don't know. I didn't mean to weigh in on that controversy.
No.
I'm not weighing in on it.
that whole chicken or egg argument that, like you said, pops up every so often on it's. Of course, one's not more important than the other. If they're not working in tandem, it's if it is one or the other, it's not a comic. Yeah. And if they're not working in tandem, it's probably not a very good comic.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's
it's why a hot mess.
My favorite books are the ones that somebody wrote and drew it, because that is the most pure form of it that you can get. Yeah, so it's like there's nothing can beat it.
For sure. So, how many future projects, announced or not, do you currently have that you're in various states of early development?
Flux.
Yeah. I have I have either a single issue of something coming out or a collection of those issues or an original graphic novel coming out every month through 2024.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. So it's a lot.
That's legit.
I need to slow down.
Well, you don't want to burn yourself out. You sure don't want to sputter your creative spark. So
yeah, I know. I wish that would be great if I could burn out at some point.
Just turn it off.
Take a break. Wow, I could take a break.
You can turn into Calliope from that issue of Sandman. It's just never turn it off.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Chad, did you have anything else for Matt? We got about time for 2 more questions.
I'm good. I mean, just kind of where people can follow him, like his YouTube channel, and
YouTube. I'm on Twitter.
Where we can hear you weigh on important stuff on Twitter.
Yeah. No, I'm you can find me on all the Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I think that's all. But you can find me there. My website, mattkint.com. All the links are there if you need to go there. But and then if you can get yourself to Heroes in North Carolina for this, I'm only doing it this one show because it's too big of a thing to travel.
I can't wait to see pictures.
Yeah, it's gonna be you'll see pictures. there will be pictures.
That's exciting, man.
For better or worse.
Are you working on having cats just like cough up hairballs and you're just going to mold it?
Oh my gosh, can you imagine like a whole this is rugs with hairballs like hidden? That's actually not a bad idea.
It's really not.
You have to take your shoes off before you take your shoes off before you enter the booth, so that you risk ruining one of your socks on a wet hairball. Yeah,
the struggle is real.
I'm not saying that may or may not be what it is.
That's
I call it my house.
Yeah.
How many cats do you have, Matt? Because you're going to need more than one.
I used to have 2 cats. I was adult onset allergy, so when they passed on, then our cat ownership passed on as well.
I got you. Wow, that's unfortunate. But
no, that's okay. It's one less inked page ruined as they walk over it. So knowing that I just finished it, they would walk over one. Like, how did you know? Like, why are you jumping up onto the table to lay on this wet ink? Anyway, somehow they knew.
They always know.
Yep.
So, well, Matt, thank you very, very much for hanging out with us tonight and talking about Flux House and your career and all that good stuff. It's been really fun talking with you, man. Yeah. I hope that we can get you back sometime to talk about what else is new at Flux House. And man, just keep doing what you're doing, because you kind of hit the nail on the head for me when you talk about the writer and artist synthesis as being the purest distillation of the creative voice for comics, because I firmly believe that the most unique stuff out there is the creator owned, writer draw, the whole shebang. And dude, you've been killing it for like 20 plus years doing it your way. So there must be something to that.
It's the beard.
So I'm content.
It is.
I didn't. Well, if you saw in 2020 years ago, I could not grow this, so I've grown into it.
Indeed, you have, sir. Well, Matt, thank you so much. Chad, thank you for hanging out. I'm Matt, and we're the Comic Watchers. This is our show. Just remember, the world can be a crappy place sometimes, but it doesn't have to be. Get out there, support your local comic book store, read something cool, and above all, just be good to each other. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.